morning. Happy New Year. Today is the 5th of January, so we've got through Christmas and New Year, and I just thought I'd update you on what I read in December and tell you how many books I read in 2024. I'm doing with that. Anyway, today's a book chat. So in 2024, I surprised myself really. I read 118 books, which is an awful lot, isn't it? Yeah, I can't believe I read that many books. But I think because I dedicated sort of 1 to 2 hours a day, mostly in bed at night, reading, it's amazing how many books you can get through in that time. And I wasn't trying to read as many as I could, that just happened to be the number that I got through. So yeah, great reading year. Had some really lovely books, some not so good, but you know, not everything will suit us, will it? And sometimes it's not the book, it's the mood you're in at the time you read it. I'm very much a mood reader. So I don't tend to set myself a number of books to read each month. I haven't decided at the beginning of the month which books I'm going to read, because I'm not sure that I'll feel like reading them as we go through the weeks. I try and have a couple that I want to read in that month, just give me a little start, but then anything else that comes along that I fancy reading, I'll give that a go and change the plan a bit. So in December, I read 5 books. Obviously, Christmas time can be quite busy. This Christmas I was ill with the virus that's going around. I spent an awful lot of time on my sofa watching TV and not really feeling like doing very much else. So I missed out on all the festivities, but I also didn't feel like reading. So the last week of December, I read very little. So 5 books. The first one I read was an Agatha Christie, The Murder of Roger Ackroyd. Now, I've only ever read one Agatha Christie before, and that was years ago when I was a teenager, and I can't really remember it. So I was a bit nervous about going into it. I mean, obviously she's a very popular crime writer, probably the most popular, perhaps except for Conan Doyle. And this was a good one to get into. It's one of the Poirot series, Hercule Poirot, the Belgian detective, and he has moved to retire basically. But as these things happen, he gets asked to help with solving a murder. Now, as the title says, the murder is of a man called Roger Ackroyd. And previously he was in love with a woman who, at the beginning of this book, it's not giving away spoilers, she has died, committed suicide, and we're trying to find out why. And then unfortunately Roger is killed as well. Now this is a closed room mystery, which I quite like actually. You know, how did it happen if nobody went in the room or nobody left the room? And yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was good fun. The occasional little twists, you can work it out about 3/4 of the way through if you're looking for the signs, but it was a good story, really enjoyed it, and I quite like to read some more Agatha Christie. So I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. That was a good start to December. The second one I read was That Bone-Setter Woman by Frances Quinn. Now, I've never come across this author before. I was just pootling around the library and I think I was attracted by the cover actually. It was sort of lovely purple colour, and I love purple. And when I looked at the blurb on the back, it was a young girl, sort of late teens, and she wanted to follow in her father's footsteps as a bone setter. But traditionally this was always done by men. Her grandfather had done it and her dad was doing it, and she wanted to learn from her father how to do it. But her father was very anti her doing it because obviously she's a woman, but she had a brother, so, you know, in theory, with the lineage, it ought to pass down to the brother. The skills should pass down to the brother. Anyways, the story goes on. There's part of the story's a romance, and part of it is her striving to do the job she wants to do. She's called Drury, Endurance Proudfoot, which is a bit of a mouthful. And she's very, I don't know, it's a good feminist story, you know, how she overcomes being put down by men, you know, and saying that she can't do it because she's a woman. But she's a very strong woman, physically and mentally. And she actually proves to be really good at the job, but a lot of things are thrown in the way to try and foil her plan, and it turned out to be great fun, good story, maybe a bit much for the romance for me, but you know, you knew you were getting that, so that's fine. So yeah, very good story. I'd like to read more of that author, Frances Quinn's book. I know that I looked her up and she's got a couple more books that I'll try and get out from the library and read. Yeah, very good story. The next book I read, I'd seen reviews of, and it got very good reviews. I don't particularly like the cover, which you can see in the photo here. It's by a lady called Alison Espach, I think her name is. Apologies if I've pronounced that wrong. And it's about a lady who goes to this hotel and she feels like her life is falling apart, and she gets mixed up in the wedding party. Now, the lady who's getting married is a bit of a control freak, and she's planned a whole week of events for all the guests at this hotel. So going out on boats, swimming, anything you can think of, you know, very lavish week. And the main character gets sucked into the wedding party because everybody thinks that's what she's there for. She's the only guest in the hotel that isn't part of the wedding group. So nobody can understand why she's there, so they just make the assumption that, you know, she's one of the friends of the bride's. And the bride does confide in her, and as the story goes on, you see why she's come to be there, and also about the life of the bride and her insecurities, how the groom reacts to the situation during the week, and what happens in the end. And it was really good. I really enjoyed it. The main theme wasn't particularly jolly, but it still ended up being very heartwarming and hopeful and quite comedic, really, under the circumstances. So yeah, very good. I would recommend that. And I gave that one 5 stars. I've got to say what I gave that Bone Setter Woman. I gave that one 4 stars. So the next book I read was nonfiction. I didn't quite like reading nonfiction, but this was the only one I read this month. And it's called Half-Arsed Human by Lena Norms. Now, I watch Lena Norms on YouTube and I really like her. I think she's great. I like the things she comes up with, the environmental sort of activism, and how she does crafting, sewing, knitting, all those kind of things. I think she's a really interesting lady. So when I knew she brought out a book, I got very excited and I reserved it at the library. And when it came through, I went to collect it, sat down to read it, and oh dear, I'm sorry, and it's not a popular opinion, but I couldn't get on with it. And it wasn't the topic. I mean, the topic about, you know, how you can get through life doing your best and doing really well, but without burnout. And yeah, great topic, very interesting. How to manage your life without thinking that you need to be perfect. But I think the language of the book, the fact that there kept being this repetition of half-arse, 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 it actually made reading really difficult for me, and that bit got on my nerves, so I didn't end up finishing the book. I think if it didn't repeat it so often, it would have been a smoother read. You could have just gone with the concepts and the ideas, and it would have been great. But for me personally, it just didn't work. It just annoyed me. Maybe I'm not the right demographic. Maybe it's written for younger people. She's a lot younger than I am, so possibly that's the reason. Or maybe I just wasn't in the right frame of mind at the time. So unfortunately, I gave that 1 star and I didn't finish it. So the final book I read in December was by Rosamund Pilcher, and it's called Winter Solstice. And I actually started reading it about the same time as the winter solstice, so that was apt. I don't normally read seasonal books, but I don't know what I've been looking at. I don't know if it was somebody on BookTube or whether it was a review in online magazine or something. But I came across this book, and I've read one of her books, The Shell Seekers, years and years ago, late teens, early 20s. And I enjoyed that, so I thought, oh, let's give it a whirl. I don't normally read seasonal books, like I said, but I'm quite happy to have a go with this one. So it was quite a gentle book. What they're called? Elfrida Phipps and Oscar Blundell. And they become friends when Frida moves to a village. She moves out of London to this village, and she is befriended by Oscar and his wife Gloria. As things turn out, they end up going up to Scotland to a cottage that Oscar owns, well, half owns with his brother. And they stay there, and it comes around to Christmas time, and other people turn up. There's a lady called Carrie and her 14-year-old niece called Lucy. They end up there for Christmas because Lucy's mum's gone to America and Lucy didn't want to go. And Carrie felt that it was very unfair that everybody was doing their own thing, but Lucy didn't get a say in it. So she took her to Scotland with her. And then there's the 5th character, Sam Howard. He's got a new job rebuilding and refurbishing an old woolen mill. And he's got nowhere to stay, so he ends up getting snowed in, and he stays at the cottage with the other 4 people. And it's a nice book. It shows that you can overcome difficult circumstances and that you can make the best of any situation. Yeah, it's a bit sloppy, but that's quite nice sometimes. I enjoyed the characters. They were very well developed and you could understand the way they behaved. I would recommend this book. It's very gentle, very easy read, and some tricky topics that are dealt with very well. So yeah, The Winter Solstice I gave 4 stars to, so that's very good. So that's what I read in December, the 5 books. So 4 really enjoyed, 1 I didn't, unfortunately. Obviously the Agatha Christie was my monthly classic, and I've decided for January for my monthly classic, I'm going to read To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. Never read it, heard a lot about it, and I managed to get a copy in a charity shop, thrift shop, so I'm going to give that a whirl I think it'll be good. That's my sort of vintage book for January. So let me know what you've been reading. What have you enjoyed? Can you recommend any fiction or non-fiction that you think I might like based on what I've already read? I'd love to have your ideas in the comments, and I will see you very soon for another video. So if you could do me a favour and like and subscribe, that would be fantastic. It'll help my channel out. And I'll see you very soon.